Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope wherever you are trying your level best to wash your hands, wear masks, and please respect social distancing because we are trying to curb the pandemic of coronavirus. My name is Stella Nante, and this is Open Up. Now, in this particular episode, we are going to be looking at law and justice in Uganda. And as Martin Luther King Jr. was quoted once saying that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So today we have a guest who is going to be sharing with us useful information about the law, the legal system in Uganda and how it works and how people can be actually helped. His name is Robert Ben Jurua, and is a respected and known legal consultant in Uganda. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
It's so nice to have you here.
Pleasure is mine.
Given you're a legal consultant, I was thinking you're going to be carrying Ugandan flags. You're going to be in suits and carrying a lot of books.
No, it's not really that way.
Yes.
The legal profession is a mixture of so many things and different brands.
All right, so let's start from there.
Yeah.
So I've introduced you, your name and all that.
Thank you.
And you're a legal consultant. Let's first start with that. What does a legal consultant do?
A legal consultant is a person who disburses expert and professional information and issues that help to address the matters that are concerning law in a society.
Okay.
A legal consultant is a person who helps to advise on various issues cutting across the board, from individuals to entities to businesses. And therefore, he is that kind of person who is a go-to as far as legal concerns are there.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a legal person.
Is it a general thing, or you just in a particular field?
It cuts across.
Oh,
it cuts across.
Yeah.
But
Since you're a consultant.
Yeah, you're consultant. But you can always specialize in a particular field, depending on your passion and depending on where you see the need for your service.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so how long have you been in this service?
It's been 10 years of my experience, of a mixture of both legal and paralegal service in different entities, in law firms, and in particular companies or entities.
How did you end up here?
It's a long story with my experience. While I was still in my secondary school, there was some instances that did not augur well with me.
Okay.
And I went through some challenges that I realized were not attended to fairly. And when I came out of that, my conviction was to see how to help such a kind of person who doesn't have a say and yet is entitled to a hearing, for example, that is going to be determined by what either he or she says or whether he or she has a representative. And I felt that was my conviction. And thereafter, I decided to take on the course.
Okay. And I'm glad that a negative situation turned out to help you.
Yeah.
To help you realize that you have passion for something.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have passion for maybe to see equality happening in society and people to be treated fairly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's about the challenges actually, positive or negative. It actually stems its authority from the Bible.
Yes.
I am a believer, and the likes of Joshua. After Moses went out of the picture, Joshua was handed the mantle. He didn't know what to do because Moses had left a very big name, very, very big shoes to fit in. But all he had to do was believe. And after he believed, he went out and tested the waters. That was actually one of my convictions, stemming from the Bible.
All I know is that law is very broad. There is commercial law, criminal, family, human rights, and you can name it. Could you please explain to us in detail about a few of those?
Generally, the law alone comes from its definition. It is a set of rules recognized by a society that can be used to govern them, whose enforcement is actualized by imposing penalties. So the law actually affects everybody in a particular way, and that means it cuts across from family to business to land and all the likes. But we'll have to categorize them. We categorize them in particular ways to say family law. Family law generally affects us as families. The smallest unit of a community is the family. So there is always going to be issues. Issues that affect the family are embedded and guided by what we call family law. So they're going to find that when there is a demise or a death of somebody, family law guides the children, the surviving children, or the widow or widower to go and access powers and authority to run the estate of the deceased. Commercial law has to do with companies and where there is money being used. Companies have to have a code of conduct. They're going to have contracts where there's always going to be issues to discuss. There's going to be an issue to do with buying a piece of land. There's going to be an issue to do with getting a bid or offering a tender. That is commercial law. So there's more into money about commercial law.
Okay.
Yeah, there is also land law. Land law is to do with buying and selling of land or leasing it out thereof. Yes. So the law it cuts across every aspect of life.
Some people say that there is a difference between law and justice.
Yeah.
If I'm to use these two words in a context.
Yes.
For example, someone can say that we want the people responsible for George Floyd's death to face the law.
Okay.
And then another person might say, we want justice for Breonna Taylor.
Okay.
So is there a difference?
When you go to the definition alone, the law, like we have defined, is a set of rules that is recognized by a society.
Yes.
Whereas justice is the way people are treated. Is there fairness?
Now that there are different types of laws, categories of laws,
Yes.
I believe there are different courts
Yeah.
that people go to handle issues.
Yeah, sure.
So could you please throw more light about that?
Yeah, of course, if there is a law, then there is going to be
A particular court.
a particular court, yes, but eventually it starts with the law, and therefore the enforcers, and for that matter, there has to be adjudication or a hearing about a wrong. So what happens is there is a particular area where you are supposed to be taken to hear out your case.
Yes.
And that is provided for in the Ugandan Constitution, 1995,
Okay.
where there is a provision for the courts of judicature. And the courts of judicature are defined from the lowest level of society, which is the LC. So from the LC1 to the LC3, they are courts of law. And then after that, there is magistrates' courts. In the magistrates' courts, there are also categories, depending on the issue. There is grade 1 magistrate and grade 2 magistrate. And thereafter, there is a chief magistrate's court. So the issues from the grade 1 magistrate go to the chief magistrate court. After the chief magistrate's court, there is a high court.
Okay.
And then the high court has a higher court called the Court of Appeal, where you are not happy with what has happened at the high court, you are allowed to go to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal also doubles as the constitutional court, where issues of the Constitution are interpreted. It is a special court meant for that. And the judges of the High Court are the very ones of the Appeal Court. Then after the High Court, after the Court of Appeal, there is the Supreme Court. Now the Supreme Court is the biggest court.
Okay.
It's the highest court,
Yes, the Supreme.
and it's supreme as it sounds.
Yes.
And it is a court where election petitions go only. When there's an election violence, you don't go to the High Court. You go straight to the Supreme Court because that is a very sensitive issue. And that is why, apart from Supreme Court handling election issues, they handle Court of Appeal issues on top of that. Yeah, that is about the hierarchy. Then, of course, after that, there are also some other courts that are not necessarily in that hierarchy but fall under the given courts. There is something called the land tribunals and tax tribunals. These are now other creatures of the different courts that are in place. For example, the land tribunals are a creature of the High Court.
Okay.
Yeah, so the High Court has the authority to create a land tribunal, and therefore land issues that may necessarily take long do not have to go to the High Court. They can particularly start from the land tribunal and then climb over if there is an issue that a person is not satisfied with, he can eventually go to the High Court.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that means if there is a feud, maybe in the community, and maybe this neighbor has done this to me, is there like a possibility that these people can settle their issues from the local council, chairman, and it cannot be escalated to going to court?
Yeah, there's nothing that cannot be done, and it's always encouraged that an issue. Nobody wants to be in court.
Yeah.
Because a
Some
court
people want to
process.
skip that part.
Yeah.
Yes.
A court process alone it's expensive. It incurs costs.
Yeah.
And if you can handle the issue from below,
Yeah.
then it's better.
Okay.
But the difference is the severity of the case will determine the level of the court. Yeah, when there is a matter that is quite expensive, maybe land has been defrauded from somebody worth 100 million, the LC1 court might not handle that case.
Yes.
It will have to go to a court that handles such a matter of such value. Yes, so the best thing is to have your court matter handled down. But if it
And
can't
if it
happen,
fails,
yeah,
then you go to the
you
High
can
Court.
climb. You can climb the ranks depending on the issue. It's
Yes.
not the High Court particularly, but depending on the issue. So it's a case by case
Yeah.
kind of scenario that requires different pieces of advice.
Okay. According to New Vision, a lot of women were seen flooding Minister Nachiwala's office.
Yeah.
And they needed legal counsel. They needed justice. So one of the women, she had a 3-year-old daughter who was defiled by a landlord's son where she was renting. That 3-year-old daughter was defiled by a landlord's son. And when she went to police, she did not get justice. And it was so sad because they chased her out of the house and they told her, "You're telling lies, this cannot happen." So she went to Minister Nachiwala's office to get answers. So my question is, do you think the police is doing its best to give justice to the society, to give the society answers according to you?
For starters, like we said earlier on, there are different institutions that are provided for in the Constitution that have mandate. Earlier on, we said the court is provided for in the Constitution.
Yes.
And then also, there is the police force, Uganda Police Force, as well provided for.
Yes.
And what we probably need to understand first is the role of the police.
Yeah.
The police is tasked with protecting the public. The police is tasked with enforcing the law.
Yeah.
And therefore, its role is different from the courts of law. It's very unfortunate for that family. I condemn such acts with the highest, in the highest order. And what happens normally is we need to understand how the criminal justice system operates. The criminal justice system, without necessarily having to mince words, is lacking. It's a fact.
Yes.
Because even before that lady had that unfortunate incident,
Yes.
we have all been through scenarios of that nature.
Yeah.
We've all had one or two issues where you need to go to the courts, or rather to the police,
Yeah.
to report a matter.
But
And,
you're afraid.
Yeah, you're afraid, number one. But also, even if you got there and you're dealing with somebody who probably knows the police, the OC, and you realize you've reported your case, you've done your due diligence,
Yes.
and the case is never going to be taken on. And you'll find that whatever you do, nothing happens. So there's also been, of course, a general feel of the society about the
Yes.
police.
Speaking of failed legal system, I'm not saying it has failed 100%, but speaking of, a few hiccups here and there,
Yeah.
some people say actually that whoever has the best story wins in court. And do you think the phase of we are all equal under and below the law works in Uganda?
On the face of it,
Yeah.
everybody is equal before the law, and that is what is required.
Okay.
However, some cases are either determined by the nature alone, the witnesses or the parties to the matter,
Yeah.
and of course as well, the level of knowledge of the law, which sometimes is lacking.
Yes.
And some people are even given ill advice by lawyers.
Yeah.
Ill advice, and you
Yeah.
find a lawyer is going to take a case to a wrong court, which is of course going to derail the client in his movement and be costly, and then again demoralize the person, which makes the person lose interest, and therefore the case goes without necessarily being addressed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So many people in Uganda have been conned in one way or the other.
Yeah.
Someone was looking for a house to rent, and they were presented with a document, and it showed it was stamped and signed, and it had some judicial stuff, and that person was confused how that person got that information. So how do we handle such?
most of these goods we're buying,
Yeah.
there's always a governing body.
Okay.
For a piece of land, there's Ministry of Lands, where the
yes.
title is processed from.
Okay.
For a motor vehicle, there's
So you
Uganda
can
Revenue.
go there actually to
Yeah.
actually confirm whether these are genuine papers or they're fake.
Yeah, sure. There is always
And
an
people don't
avenue.
know that. They don't even know where to go, and that's the problem.
Yeah, or normally, of course, lack of information and ignorance. For example, Uganda Revenue Authority, you have the right even to go on the website and search for the number plate of a car. Whose names is it registered
might be
in?
being sold like a couple of times, and you have no idea.
Yeah, you have to task yourself because you are in the business of spending money. The courts of law introduced a scope called small claims procedure, where all you do is go to the magistrate's court, let them know your issue, they'll advise you or give you 1 or 2 forms to fill, and then you're supposed to take them over to the other party, which are called summons.
Yes.
Summons are given unto that person with a hearing date. Or you get a demand notice, take to the person, and when it comes to that time, there's what we call chamber summons, where the magistrate is going to address both of you directly without the lawyer. All you need is to understand the issue, which can either be done at the magistrate's court by the clerks, or of course getting to a lawyer to advise. So it will only be right that the lawyer tells you this is a small claims procedure. You can either go there yourself, or I could go and help you, either at no cost or something little. But even you on your own, you can afford to go for it. That's how the small claims procedure works. Then the rest, of course, will always come with minimal costs. Guys out there shouldn't get scared of the law and practice of itself, because it helps you to understand what you're doing and also be directly involved in it to avoid third-party kind of litigation. Yeah.
Now there is a social evil that is eating up our society.
Yeah.
Whereby a family loses a head of their family, or a mother, or a caretaker, and there are issues coming from strangers to distant relatives claiming the property of the deceased. What do you have to say about that?
Let's take an instance of land where there is a plot of land for a deceased, rest in peace. The family has a recourse to take. By going to the lands ministry, depending on where that land is, you go to that particular office and do what we call caveating. You caveat the title. Let's assume there is a title. You go, you have the right to caveat. To caveat simply means to stop anyone from transacting on this piece of land until my issue is solved. Because ordinarily when there is a death of somebody, the owner of the property in whose names the land was, there is going to be administratorship powers given to the survivors. Now the survivors will need to go through a process to get those papers. But in the course of that process, you are also allowed to caveat. You go and caveat the land and then run through your processes. After you've done that, whenever there is anybody who is coming in to try to take the land, he or she is going to find that it is caveated. And for the caveat to move, the person who caveated it, who is called the caveator, has to remove the caveat. So let's assume that you have caveated a piece of land, then eventually you want to sell it, you yourself who has caveated it. You were supposed to go and remove the caveat and then sell it to a person, genuinely. So that person who has ulterior motives will not access the land. There will be some kind of stop. Say, who are you?
So we cannot run away from the fact that coronavirus has affected so many systems, economies around the world. And in Uganda specifically, I believe that COVID-19 has affected the legal system as well. Now, in issues concerning handling cases, was the legal system affected by COVID-19?
Yeah. Recently, the president allowed only 30 lawyers to go back to court. We are thousands. What was the criteria? And if you're not amongst those 30, what happens to your client? So there was that challenge, and slowly by slowly, we're getting out of it.
Let's take a very short break. Open Up continues. You're still watching Open Up. My name is Stella Nante, and we have a legal consultant in studio who has been talking to us about how COVID-19 has affected the legal system, and that was before we went for the break. There are a few ways that I'm seeing companies are coming up to educate the public about knowing their rights.
Yeah.
And about knowing the law.
Yeah.
Like there's a one show on Spark TV called Know Your Rights.
Yeah.
And so many others.
Yeah.
So how do you think we can make the public know their rights and the law?
The public is always encouraged to reach out to the various institutions that either protect us or guard us, like the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs is the ministry that is in charge of issues to do with law. The officers are in town, and it's a free walk-in.
Yes.
You can go online. Most of these things are online.
Very important.
Very important to get online.
What are pro bono services? Pro bono services.
Pro bono services are legal services offered for free.
Oh, wow. Good.
And that is actually a creature of Uganda Law Society,
Okay.
the body that governs us. Every advocate in a year is tasked to take on a particular number of pro bono cases,
Okay.
according to how you have been operating in whichever field you've been.
Yes.
So there is also that aspect that a client can try to use by maybe going to Uganda Law Society to see what to do.
Yes.
And then, of course, there are these others who come to us and, okay, well, truthfully, he probably doesn't have so much. But out of your heart, it's also a gift to be helpful.
Okay.
If you see that you can help this person, it's no crime. It's no crime to help a person if there is going to be a benefit for the person who is going to have to gauge on whether he was helped or not. I sit at Equatoria Mall, opposite Watoto Church.
Yes.
It's on Bench Wanuka Street,
Yes.
room 112.
Okay.
But I am as well on phone.
Yes.
Yeah, because most of the times you want to address an issue where it is.
Yeah.
But that is my office
Okay.
location, and I'm there on call
Okay.
depending on what the issue is. So while on phone, you can agree. Can I meet you in office? What is comfortable for you? So yeah, but I'm there at Equatorial Mall.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you too.
I've learned a lot.
Pleasure.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Well, let me leave you with a word of advice. It's just, for people to... Yeah.
Sure.
Don't worry, everything will work out in the end. You don't need to know how, you just have to know that it will. Please never let a bad situation bring out the worst in you. Always be strong and choose to be positive. Till next time, Stella Nante. This has been Open Up. Bye.